Imagine you're driving a massive oil tanker at full speed, and suddenly, the ocean turns into a brick wall. That is exactly what the global petrochemical industry is facing in 2026. Some of these giants look solid on paper, but we found a hole in their pockets the size of a crater. Welcome to the strategic Great Divide. I'm your analyst from HDIN Research, and today, we're stripping away the jargon to see who survives the collision between old-school oil and the new green reality. If 2025 taught us anything, it's that making a lot of stuff is no longer a business plan, it's a suicide note. Look at the numbers. While Asia, specifically China, is swallowing up 80% of global demand growth, the rest of the world is basically in a defensive crouch. We're moving from a volume game to a value game. It's no longer about how much plastic you can churn out, it's about how much smart plastic you can sell. Here's the wow factor. See that dip in the chart? When Brent oil prices slid to $69, it didn't just make your gas cheaper, it wiped out billions from the pantry of Asian chemical giants. Why? Because they bought their groceries when prices were high, and now they're selling the finished meal at a discount. In Thailand and Korea alone, this inventory trap erased enough profit to buy a fleet of private jets for every CEO in the region. Now the industry is splitting in two. Think of it like the grocery business. On one side, you have the Costco of chemicals, monsters like Aramco, who win by sheer terrifying scale. On the other, you have the organic boutique innovators. If you're stuck in the middle, you're not a business, you're a target. Let's talk about the heavyweights. Saudi Aramco and Sinopec are in a league of their own. Aramco's revenue is basically the GDP of a small developed nation. To put it in perspective, their cash flow could probably pay for a round of drinks for every person on Earth. Every single day. Even when the market dips 7%, they're still sitting on an EBITDA of $211 billion. That's not a business. That's a fortress. Efficiency is a boring word until you see this. ExxonMobil generates over $5.5 million in revenue per employee. Compare that to BASF, where each person brings in about 10% of that. It's like comparing a lean, automated Tesla factory to a 1950s assembly line. Exxon's model is so lean that they can keep paying dividends even when the world feels like it's ending. Forget the trade war headlines for a second. In the real world, the Western giants are actually moving into China at record speeds. BASF and Exxon are building massive sites in Zhanjiang and Huizhou. Why? Because they want to be right next to the people buying high-end materials for electric vehicles. For the first time, these guys own 100% of their kitchens in China. No partners, no sharing, just pure high-stakes competition. While everyone else is worrying about oil, LG Chem is basically saying, we're a battery company now. They've moved more than half their business into battery materials. They aren't just selling plastic. They're selling the heart of your next car. By 2030, traditional chemicals will be just a side hustle for them. Talk about an identity upgrade. Aramco has a secret weapon. They pull oil out of the ground for about $3.50 a barrel. Most of us pay more than that for a Starbucks latte. By turning that cheap oil directly into chemicals, they're cutting out the middleman. They aren't just the biggest player, they have the cheapest ingredients on the planet. It's almost unfair. Let's look at the report card. Saudi Aramco has a profit margin of 47%. That's an A+. Meanwhile, look at Lotte Chemical down there at 1.5%. That's a please see me after class grade. When your margins are that thin, one bad week of oil prices can sink the whole ship. Who's actually going green? It's not just PR. Exxon is betting big on carbon capture, while Sinopec is building the world's largest green hydrogen network. By 2030, the carbon tax is going to be a massive bill. These billions being spent today are essentially protection money to ensure they can still trade in Europe and the US tomorrow. Time for some real talk. Aramco recently took an $8.6 billion hit on their SABIC assets. In the accounting world, we call this a big bath. They're throwing out all the bad news now while the market is down, so that when 2026 rolls around, their books look spotless. It's like cleaning your house perfectly right before the guests arrive. Here's the nightmare scenario. If the Strait of Hormuz gets blocked for just 30 days, Sinopec loses 80% of its oil. That's not a slowdown, that's a heart attack for the Chinese supply chain. Only Dow and Exxon have a geographical shield because they have all the gas and oil they need right in North America. Success in 2026 looks like this: LG's high-nickel cathodes, Dow's plastic recycling tech, and Sinopec's hydrogen pipes. These aren't cool side projects. These are the only things that will keep these companies relevant in a world that's trying to move away from fossil fuels. So where are we heading? 2025 was the bottom. 2027 brings the dreaded carbon tax in Europe. By 2029, if you aren't making more money from specialty stuff than basic stuff, you're probably headed for a merger or a bankruptcy. The clock is ticking. We've barely scratched the surface here. HDIN research has over 1,000 data points on these giants. If you want the full numbers to de-risk your strategy, drop us a line at sales@hdinresearch.com. Don't just watch the divide. Make sure you're on the right side of it. I'm HDIN Research, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.